Hello and good day. Welcome to our video channel, God's Promises. And today's video will be Psalms 138. Let's get started now. Psalm 138 is a beautiful psalm of thanksgiving and praise, attributed to King David. It is a personal expression of David's gratitude to God for his faithfulness and goodness in his life. The psalm is filled with rich imagery and powerful declarations of God's sovereignty and grace. In this article, we will explore the meaning and application of this psalm for our lives today. The psalm begins with David expressing his wholehearted praise to God, declaring that he will give thanks to God with all his heart and sing praises to him in the presence of the angels. David acknowledges that God has answered his prayers and has given him strength and courage to face his enemies. He affirms that God's love and faithfulness endure forever, and his name and his word are exalted above all things. In the next section of the psalm, David reflects on his personal experience of God's faithfulness. He declares that God has exalted his name and his word above all else, and has answered his prayers when he was in distress. David acknowledges that although he has faced trouble and affliction, God has always been faithful to him, and his right hand has saved him from his enemies. David then turns his attention to the broader scope of God's sovereignty and power. He declares that all the kings of the earth will give thanks to God when they hear his word. He affirms that God is exalted above all the gods, and his glory is unmatched. David acknowledges that God is sovereign over all things and that his power and might are beyond measure. The psalm concludes with David's personal prayer of thanksgiving and supplication. He asks God to continue to be gracious to him and to fulfill his purpose for his life. David expresses his confidence in God's faithfulness and declares that he will not abandon the work of his hands. The teaching application of Psalm 138 is manifold. Firstly, the psalm encourages us to give thanks to God with all our hearts and to sing praises to him in the presence of the angels. It reminds us that God is faithful and loving, and his steadfast love endures forever. We should always remember that God has answered our prayers in the past and will continue to do so in the future. Secondly, the psalm challenges us to reflect on our personal experience of God's faithfulness. Like David, we should acknowledge that although we have faced trouble and affliction, God has always been faithful to us, and his right hand has saved us from our enemies. We should be grateful for the ways in which God has worked in our lives and remember his faithfulness. Thirdly, the psalm reminds us of God's sovereignty and power. It teaches us that God is exalted above all the gods, and his glory is unmatched. We should acknowledge that God is sovereign over all things, and his power and might are beyond measure. We should have confidence in God's faithfulness, and trust that he will continue to work in our lives and fulfill his purpose for us. In conclusion, Psalm 138 is a beautiful psalm of thanksgiving and praise. It encourages us to give thanks to God with all our hearts, reflect on his faithfulness in our lives, and acknowledge his sovereignty and power. May we always remember God's steadfast love and faithfulness, and may we give him the honor and glory that he deserves. Thank you for visiting us today. Please share with us your favorite Bible verse below in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, it really does help our channel grow. Looking forward to see you back here for our next video. Always take good care.